Tarke here, and today I'm going to give my starter build advice. And I have my starter build prepared in the background, but I'm going to go into that later. See, people say, but Tarke, what build should I play? If you want to just know a good build, just go onto PoB Ninja and just copy a good build there. Keep in mind, while Indigon does a lot of damage, you're probably not going to have Indigon day one. So you're going to want a nice starter build. So I have prepared a very handy ski boop list of things which are nice for them day one starter builds. So I've separated this, and this hasn't got every build, hasn't got every Ascendancy. There's just some like good example builds, some good example Ascendancies. There are obviously other things you could do. This is just a very basic thing for people who don't know what they're doing. So if you want a build which does a lot of damage, most champions, most elementalists will do a lot of damage. They won't have the best defense. They won't have the best clear speed without, using lots of other things. But for example, if you had an elementalist with an impulsor, now you got a bit of zoom on your elementalist. Going for like the things which have very good defense, Slayer Leech. Slayer Leech will be amazing, be it from a Slayer or a Scion. Slayer Leech will be fucking muy buen. Now, a good example, you could league start on a champion and then later respec into a Slayer for then doing the really crazy delve pushes. Something to consider. If you want a just super zoom, you can't go wrong with either a Deadeye or a Trickster. If you have Impulsor in your build is suddenly a fast build. And now let's kind of talking about the middle things. So, if you want a nice blend of damage and defense, Saboteur does ridiculous damage and has incredibly good defense. Juggernaut is a raw defensive Ascendancy, but you can do some really nice stat stick, crit attack builds with Jug. So you can like play a very defensive Ascendancy, such as Jug, and then just go full out on offense. Or you can play Sab, which has a nice mix of very high damage and very high defense, and kind of go more that way. Going into a damage zoom defense hybrid, I say Necro. Now this is probably a slightly contagious one, or like contentious even, that's the word I meant to use. So summoners, if built correctly, can do some absurd damage. You can do full boss damage Spectres, you can go Skellies, Skellies do really dumb damage. That's one way of building it. You can go for zoom Spectres, going for Solar Guards. Obviously, some Spectres are better suited for indoor maps versus outdoor maps. Even the Dancing Dervish thing actually looks pretty decent for some good clear speed. So it's all about finding the Necro which really balances what you want. Do you want to do crazy damage? Do you want to do very good clear speed? Do you want to have really good defense? You can kind of come up with anything with Necro. And there are a lot of new tools. Obviously, there is the whole new cool Guardian summary stuff. Without playing it, I can't judge it. If you want to do that, go for it. But, don't tell me if it doesn't work out very well. Another good, like, hybrid defense zoom build is Righteous Fire. Righteous Fire is always a fast build, just with how it naturally just kills stuff while shield charging. It can do decent single target if built correctly, utilizing Scorching Ray. If you get creative with it, you could do some like Righteous Fire Hierophant using Scorching Ray totems. Suddenly you have a build which has very strong defense, pretty good clear speed, and then very strong single target damage. You can warp all of these things around. Another good example would be something like Ancestral Warchief. Ancestral Warchief is a very strong starter build. It's pretty slow, but if you build it in certain ways, you could have a very strong damage defensive build to go from. And maybe with the new Val Ancestral Warchief, you could get a little bit of that zoom. Now to get into the dunce builds, the things which you can play, there's nothing wrong with playing them, but if you play them, it's kind of like, come on, homie. Raider. You will know the Raider, Tarke memes. If you want to play Raider, in most cases, you'd be better off just playing fucking Pathfinder. Pathfinder is really good with nothing. Pathfinder could technically be all of these things once you have the correct investment. But if you just play a base Pathfinder with like 4 Magic Flasks, which is what I'm planning on doing for my Corsair starter, it fits perfectly into everything. Now, Berserker. Berserker is fine. It's not that great. It's fine. Mathel recently played a Berserker and he completely skipped the Rage mechanic because Rage is stupid. You can play it like that, but really, what's the point? If you really wanted to play a Berserker, probably go for like the Warchief nodes. So now you have instant, the Warcry nodes. You have instant Warcries, maybe do Dibian Dirge, Ancestral Warchief Berserker. It would be good, but you could come up with something better, to be honest. And then finally, if you are Scaff. Now, most of you aren't Scaff. Really, only one of you is Scaff. If you are Scaff, there's no help for you. Anything you do will be a dunce build. So just sort of accept that. So from that, what will I be playing? What is my league starter of choice? I'm going to be playing a damage... Thank you, Hammy. A damage over time focused caustic arrow Pathfinder. Now, this build is completely focused on the damage over time clouds and not at all focused on the hit. Now, I've done my best job to replicate... I've done my best job to replicate the damage that we will see in 3.4. Path building isn't updated for that. But if you want to see the damage a level 20 caustic arrow would do, the new caustic arrow at level 20 will do the damage of a level 28 caustic arrow. Now, these supports here don't include the new ones. These are just like base starter supports to go with. And on Shaper, with 10 wither stacks, which isn't completely unreasonable. You could turn them down if you wanted to. I'll be talking about how I apply wither later on. You get to a pretty respectable, I believe it was 170k dot damage. Could be higher, could be lower. This was just a +2 bow with no chaos scaling on any of my gear. And I'll explain all the gear stuff later. So it's fairly reasonable. If you want to be super safe, just say it's going to be like 150-ish K dot damage on Shaper. Very respectable. It won't be the best build for pushing it in crazy high delves, but it'll be a very solid start and it'll be a very smooth leveler. Because of the way that it scales, you don't really need any gear to get it going. The other great thing about it is this looks like a pretty generic tree that you could easily turn into something else. So if you want to just turn this into a tornado shot build later down the line when you had all the gear and everything, you can do it very, very easily. Now, to explain a few of the things that I've gone for, some things I haven't gone for. I picked up skill effect duration. This is a lot of people say, why did you get that in your build? The new caustic arrow has a very short duration, it only lasts for 2 seconds. I plan on using Vol Blight in this build. Vol Blight is a very good single target increase, and this threshold jewel up here is 1 Spreading Rot Blight jewel. I'm only going to use one because I'm going to be playing SSF. I'm going to have access to one, and getting the second one, you could do it. It's like 5 points. I don't think it's really worth it. You could also spend 6 points and put it here. Personally, I'd put it here because these points are more to than those ones. But yeah, I think 1 is good enough. So not only does it make your Caustic Arrow Cloud last longer, not only does it make your Vol Blight last longer, it will also affect Phase Run. I will be using Phase Run very heavily in this build. I haven't factored Phase Run into my movement speed, but it will be there most of the time. It will also scale your Mirage Archer, your Wither, and your Toxic Rain. Now, we don't know exactly how Toxic Rain will work. Some people think the clouds from Toxic Rain, which also do a damage over time degen like CA, will actually stack. If that's the case, it will do ridiculous damage and be broken, and you play that over Caustic Arrow. If it doesn't stack, which it probably won't, because if it does, that's broken, then you use it as a pure utility defensive setup. So you run a 4-link, Toxic Rain, Mirage Archer, Withering Touch, Increased Duration. The reason why you run this is you attack once the Mirage Archer does its job. It applies up to a 60% slow on enemies. Just by itself, you then have Wither, which also slows, and it just applies your Wither for you. Because you have that applying your Wither, it's a lot easier, a lot faster, a lot less clunky than running a Wither spell totem. Also, that means you can use a decoy totem for bosses. So very strong defensive buff to the build there, with a little bit of extra passive damage over time and some really nice utility. Because you have that applying the Withering Touch, you don't need to worry about Withering Touch being on anything else. You could also use that to do some curse setup if you want to, but personally I won't. So you have that just randomly in a 4-link, and then you just go for your 6-link Caustic Arrow somewhere in the rest of your build. This build is planning to use the new Herald of Agony, but without playing with Herald of Agony, you don't know exactly how to build it. If you want to go for more map clear, use like Herald of Agony, GMP, Chain, Fork, stuff like that. If you want to go more single target focus based, then use stuff like Vicious Projectiles, maybe GMP for some AoE overlap. We don't really know without playing it, but yeah. Depending on how much leftover mana we have there, you could use a Defensive Blasphemy, you could run Grace, you could go completely unreserved mana. Who knows? You have options there. The only other contentious things, it's all pretty straightforward, get all the damage over time nodes. We do get a bunch of mana and flask nodes. The reason why we do that is you'll be spamming a lot of abilities in this build, and because it's a dot-based build, we're not going to have any form of like mana leech. So having good regen is always nice. If you feel like there's too much, you can always cut some of them. Primal Spirit is very nice. The fact it gives you strength and int, so it will fix your stat requirements, which is PogChamp, and it gives you increased flask charges gained. Druidic Rite gives you increased flask charges gains, increased flask effect duration. As a Pathfinder, you don't really need the extra duration, but this makes Pathfinder even juicier. And then Arcane Chemistry gives you reduced flask charges used. This is particularly strong on stuff like Life Flask. Getting the extra uses is very, very powerful. And for the defense of this build will have about 6k life easy with very minimal starter gear. It will have over 110% flask effectiveness on your life flasks and your defensive flasks. You'll have naturally regenerating flask charges from Nature's Boon. And you'll have roughly 4% regen-ish with access to build into more things. You could maybe use like an Enduring Cry or an Abyssal Cry. So there are more ways that you can scale stuff into this build. When it comes to your Ascendancy options, again, we don't know how good the Herald will be. If the Herald is amazing, you're going to want all 4 of these points. If the Herald isn't very good, you don't need to focus on these points that much. A lot of people ask, well, why do I take Nature's Adrenaline over taking Master Alchemist? When you start running a bunch of unique flasks, Dying Sun, Witchfire Brew, obviously you take Master Alchemist. You're not going to have that day one of the league, right? So until then, just use Nature's Adrenaline, get the nice movement speed, get the nice attack speed, make your build feel better, and then just use a bunch of normal flasks as I do to cover your status elements, etc. And then the reason going Nature's Boon over Master Surgeon. Nature's Boon gives reduced LE damage taken. This is equivalent of like max res, for example. Flask charges gained every 3 seconds, and chance for flask not to consume charges. Very, very powerful. I'd probably take this as my starter, and then when I get Uber, I'd knock this out. The order you want to do this in, if you only care about like leveling very quickly, grab Nature's Adrenaline. The movement speed will make you level the fastest. It's always very strong. If you just want to get that Super Herald really quick, do that. So get your 4-pointer, get that as your 6th, then when you eventually get Uberlock, unlock Nature's. Some variation of that seems good. Going into the gearing, you have a lot of options for gear. This is just like a very base setup I've thrown in here. I'm just using Silver Bow as an example, +2 bow. You can use any bow. Ideally, you're going to be farming Porcupine cards to get an early 6 rank if you're an SSF player. Another very strong option you can go for is you could go for a +2 chest piece, which then lets you use any bow you want. You can quite easily get a +2 chest piece. I mean, you could use a Quill Rain for just map clear. If it turns out the on-hit effect is good on Corsair, you could use, for example, a Lionized Glare to get more additional damage. You have a lot of options for your chest and weapon, respectively. For your quiver, you want a penetrating quiver. You can get up to +2 pierce. You can get additional arrow quivers if you start doing fancy Elder and Shaper item stuff. But just baseline, a penetrating quiver with 1 pierce, life, some resist is perfect. It's all you need. And if you have pierce on the quiver, you don't need pierce on the tree. If you feel like you need it, you can get both. The helmet, Devoto's Devotion is always very solid. It gives you Chaos Words, it gives you movement speed. It is a bow build. Getting movement speed is always nice. You could just use a life helmet. That means you could easily push, 6.5k, maybe even close to 7k life with the setup I have here. For the chest piece, Queen of the Forest will be the obvious one for most people. It gives you a shit ton movement speed. The chest currently gives you 77% movement speed. Sorry, 75% movement speed, which is very fucking powerful. Other good options for the chest piece would be Lore Weave. Aspect of the Spider will be available this league through div cards and fossil crafting. So the aspects of the spider, chest, and gloves could be very powerful. There are lots of options. That's just a good one to kind of go for. Gloves, something with life resists, easy. Boots, it's 0 step, is a very easy thing to get hold of first few days of a league. Just farm a bit of normal at 0, should be pretty straightforward. Get some life, get some spell dodge, seems good. Otherwise, just get any rare pair of boots as fucking fix. Ami, you're going to want life and resist. Pretty fucking easy. Same with rings, just get life and resist on them. Eventually, you're going to want envy crafted gear to get some extra chaos damage. Until then, just get whatever. For belt, Stygian Vise with life. If you can get resist, if you can get strength, if you can get all that good stuff, great. But, this is just a very basic example of the kind of shit you're going to want early into the league. What you're going to kind of want on your searching eye jewels. So you're going to want at least a searching or a murderous eye jewel, at least 1 or 2 of them. The reason being is to get the onslaught on kill. Have that life, then increase damage every time while wielding a 2-handed weapon. A bow counts as a 2-handed weapon. That works very well. Depending on how good the Agony, Crawl, or Scorpion is, you could maybe even go for like more minion-based jewels to buff that up. It really just depends on how the build sort of works out. Flask-wise, try and get either an Alchemist or a Chemist Quicksilver Adrenaline. Chemist is going to make the build feel better for slower players with bad clear speed. Alchemist, if you can pull it off all the time, gives you that extra movement speed. Seems fucking amazing. Jade Flask of Reflexes. You're going to want that if you're using the Queen of the Forest. If you're not using the Queen of the Forest, it's less important. Thank you for the sub, Amy. Sidmite Flask of Warding, you need Curse Removal on your build. I know Wolfio doesn't do it, but trust me, you want to do it. Sidmite Flask is the best uptime. That's the best thing to go for there. Sulfur Flask of Staunching. Sulfur Flask gives you a good amount of damage early on. It's just like under like 9%-ish damage. That's very respectable. Also has very good use. Put Bleed Removal on that. And then you could also put Freeze Removal on that, Bleed Removal on the Life Flask, whichever one you prefer. And then a Seething Divine Life Flask, which will heal you for upwards of 2k life with all the Flask effectiveness we have going on here. And with Arcane Chemistry, maybe even a reduced Flask charges, use Belt, you can easily get 5-6 uses even. So, yeah. Looks like it'll be a good build. The numbers on it look decent. If it turns out that this build is absolutely trash, it will carry you through leveling easily. You can then transition it into something else later on. And yeah, this is what I'm planning on starting on. I'm sure everyone's going to play this. I'm sure there are lots of different variations on how exactly to build it. There are small things you can do here and there. One thing I would like to add into this build, which isn't in this build, I would like to get instant war cries because I feel like Abyssal Cry would really carry this build hard. You could just use Abyssal Cry anyway and just not have it be instant. We've done it for the last however many years and it's been fine. Obviously it would feel better. If you did change the skill tree to come over this way, probably also grab Marauder Life. But yeah, this is just like a base, pretty straightforward tree. If you're like, but Tarke, this level 95 tree, how the hell do I plan this down to a level 70 or level 80 build? Cut utility. If you don't need utility, you could cut some of the mana nodes. Boom, boom, boom. We've now made this level 89 tree. If you're like, homie, I have too much damage or I don't need more damage, you could cut some of these nodes down. You've got it's like an 85 tree. If you're like Tarke, I don't need all this extra regen and stats. Cut a point here. And yeah, that is pretty straightforward. You just got to think a little bit. What do you want the build to do? Do you have good jewels? Maybe get some 3-point jewels. You can get a 3-point jewel here through resist if you need resist, or here through damage if you don't need resist. You can get another 3-point jewel here. You can get another 3-point jewel here. Again, I'm playing SSF, so I'm not planning on having insane jewels early on. And if you want to know, are you playing hardcore SF? Are you playing softcore SF? My plan is to play softcore SF this time round. I experimented a little bit with softcore SSF this past league and incursion in the flashback, and I had a lot of fun with it. My main reasoning for wanting to play it over hardcore this time round, Delve seems to really promote people pushing characters to their absolute limits. If you're going to push a character to its absolute limit, it's much easier to do in softcore than hardcore. I think if you really want to enjoy Delve, you'll have more fun with it in general doing it in softcore. Also, another thing to keep in mind, if you really want to play hardcore, probably play hardcore Trade League over hardcore SSF. Delve is bound to have some crazy bugs, some crazy overpowered things in there, and it would feel super frustrating to finally get your Impulse or finally get your 6-link and then die to some bullshit bug. So if you want to play hardcore SSF, good luck to you, man. Fucking you have massive, massive giblets of either men or female status, depending on what you identify with or whatever. And if you're asking Tarke, you know, why Pathfinder, why not Trickster, why not Occultist, why not Champion? Champion is actually pretty decent for this. I personally prefer Pathfinder. Pathfinder is more of an all-rounder in comparison to Trickster. You could go Trickster. It's pretty obvious, drop some start nodes, grab these start nodes. And if you want to go Occultist base, it might look something sort of like this. I'll link this paste which has the Occultist version and the Pathfinder version. I get all the minion shit. I feel like the minion thing is insane. If you're playing any build within like 2 points of this cluster, you just get it. Any totem build that doesn't grab this, you're doing something fucking wrong. The reason being is if you're at this part of the tree anyway, this is something like 14% damage per point and you get 1% life. That's really fucking good. Not only that, by having minion damage affect you, that suddenly opens you up to a whole new set of unique items, new jewels with minion damage on it. Very, very strong. Also something to consider, you know, if it turns out that the Herald of Agony crawler thing is really strong, you could get a bunch of minion scaling, which will scale your minion, and it will also scale you. So that's a really interesting option there, if you're in that part of the skill tree. I think the Occultist will be very good. You definitely want Profane Bloom. Probably drop Void Beacon, take Malediction instead. But you definitely want these. This is like the core, then take either Void Beacon or take Malediction. Malediction is more powerful than Void Beacon. It just is. If you have absolutely no curse investment, obviously Void Beacon's okay, but curses are pretty fucking good, guys. So yes, anyway, I'm Tarke. This is what I'm going to be league starting with. Again, if you get confused, refer to the paint image. Hope you have a good day. Bye-bye. Have fun in Delve, Exiles. Dirty roleplay. Ha ha.